Hi there, I'm Danny Henderson. Welcome back to my full disclosure channel. My guest today was once known as a top secret whistleblower, a former Navy personnel. This man is a brilliant genius. He's done so much exploring, he's done so much work off planet with crystal technology. There's so much I could say, but right now I'm just going to say, welcome, my friend Dan Willis. How are you, sir?
Danny, what a honor to be on your show again. Yeah, we've been interesting times we're in. There's so many different voices, so many. No doubt, everybody agrees we're under psychological warfare here, um, to try to muddy what the truth is. And one thing that indicates what the truth is evidence. And I think evidence is something that is it's very important to pay attention to.
I think it's the most important thing, especially now, as you were saying, we can listen to so many different voices, but who actually brings truth, who actually brings evidence that others can then go and corroborate and research. And that's how we know what real disclosure is. So I'm going to hand the floor to you, sir, and you're going to take us into one of your beautiful presentations.
Okay, here we go. I'm going to try to rocket through this in a rapid succession. I know each slide could go into in depth quite a bit more, but we're just going to highlight a lot of history. Here we go. Okay, here's a little presentation called Evidence. This is a brief synopsis that we're going to go through a brief history through this period, and we're going to review the evidence of 20th and 21st century witnesses and contactees and come to a conclusion. We've all been in an ongoing psychological war for the public's perception of the extraterrestrial reality. The following is a brief history during the 20th century why the truth has been hidden from the public. 1933, 1955, the Nazis form an alliance with extraterrestrial group that gives them advanced technologies. They escape and infiltrate into the United States. The government and Vatican makes efforts for containment to hide this truth. 1933, the Nazi SS gained into an alliance with the reptilians, the Draco of the Sakar Empire. This violates the Prime Directive. They achieve anti-gravity capabilities by 1934 and establish a moon base in 1942. They recruit 10,000 racially pure women down to their base in Antarctica to give 4 women to each man to help propagate their race. They have a secret plan that Weltanschauungskrieg translates from German into worldview warfare. They plan to infiltrate into the United States and create, quote, a matrix of perception in order to hide their secret operations. And as we'll see here in the future slides, how they effectively did that. You say something, Danny?
No?
Oh, okay. Um, let's see. Well, the Nazis escape, unlike the History Channel and everything. Hitler, Himmler, 250,000 Germans, Reich's top scientists, and over 100 U-boats escaped to the Antarctic base and to Argentina to operate from the underground. This was substantiated in the JFK files that were released in 2017 that Hitler was alive and well in South America. And Himmler did not take the cyanide cap, it was his double. They both successfully escaped. Yeah, after a long, hard war, we wanted to believe we had won the war with the Nazis. Allen Dulles, who was infamous for the Nazi infiltration, because of President Truman's fear of the Soviets, he cuts a deal with Major General Reinhard Gehlen, head of Nazi intelligence, to bring in thousands of Nazi spies into the OSS, which turned into today's CIA. Operation Paperclip. Allen Dulles orders the Nazi dossiers to be cleansed of any references that they were once considered to be a menace to the security of the United States, and they puts them in top key positions. History was rewritten. doing a limited hangout to hide the fact that the Nazis escaped and infiltrated, to school children studying history in the future won't have a clue. Um, the Nuremberg trials and the formation of the Center of Disease Control, 1,600 former Nazi scientists and doctors create the formation of the Center of Disease Control. IG Farben, the pharmaceutical conglomerate that was the largest financial backer of Adolf Hitler, was split in part of 13 pharmaceutical corporations that are big pharma today. A very highly credible witness that's heavily documented, William Tomkins, said that the Nazi scientists that came over in Paperclip took over the aerospace and biomedical operations in the U.S. And eventually, the highest positions within the U.S. pharmaceutical industry are in their control today. 1947, the Niboo Greys, they crash a ship near Roswell to prepare for the invasion of Earth. This is like a Trojan horse to entice our government with a future technology exchange agreement. 2 months later, against Truman's wishes, Allen Dulles insists to create the Central Intelligence Agency. All of this happens on the same day. The Department of Air Force is created, and the first MJ-12 group, which is headed by Admiral Roscoe Hillenkotter, MJ-1, and the first CIA director, who said, quote, "It is time for the truth to be brought out. Behind the scenes, high-ranking Air Force officers are soberly concerned about the UFOs, but through official secrecy and ridicule, many citizens are led to believe the unknown flying saucers are all nonsense. I urge immediate congressional action to reduce the dangers from secrecy about the unidentified flying objects." Note he was very concerned that this extreme secrecy that was set up could be hijacked and used. Now, because the Prime Directive was violated, this allowed the Galactic Federation of Worlds, in the interest of balance, of working with the U.S. Navy. Here you can see Commander Demitor in the center foreground. 1947, Xavier Dorsch was Nazi Germany's top underground base expert. And under the U.S. Underground Plant Program, they started tunneling in the Monsanto Mountains of New Mexico and started to build a vast network of deep underground military bases that are all interlinked and connected. James Forrestal sends Admiral Byrd with a complete huge military armada down to attack the Nazi base in Antarctica. With the Nazis' advanced anti-gravity and directed energy weapons, it completely wiped out all of their aircraft. Everybody was sworn to secrecy. James Forrestal wanted to alert the public of this Nazi threat from Antarctica, but he is murdered by MJ-12 by throwing him out of the hospital window. An authenticated report of the MJ-12 annual report revealed this action, saying, quote, "The untimely death of Secretary Forrestal was deemed necessary and regrettable." Then the 1949 CIA Act gave the congressional stamp of approval for the creation of a black budget without regard to any provisions of law for the CIA. President Harry Truman expressed his concerns by saying, quote, "For some time I've been disturbed by the way the CIA has diverted from its original assignment. It has become an operational and at times a policy-making arm of the government, and that it had become a government all its own and all secret. They don't have to account to anybody." Now, part of the worldview warfare plan that was critical was the control of the perceptions of the public through the media. Allen Dulles starts Operation Mockingbird, where the CIA is paying 400 media journalists to form the public's perceptions with their controlled media assets that started with the Washington Post, ABC, NBC, CBS, Time, Newsweek, Associated Press, United Press International, etc. General Russell Pope, who was trained at the CIA psychological warfare school, started tabloids that when you go to the grocery store, the checkout stand, you see these ridiculous stories. This is to discredit the UFO topic in the public's mind, so they just think it's absolutely nonsense. And of course, the Hollywood movie industry, the CIA working with the Air Force under Project Dove, psychological operations influence the Hollywood movie industry that forms the public's imagination of their perceptions of extraterrestrials. Now, while the Nazis had already achieved anti-gravity and so many other advanced technologies, they wanted to keep the rest of the United States completely technologically retarded. They started the Invention Secrecy Act, where anybody who reveals technology, they get a national security order. Under the sensitive application warning system, if you have like an anti-gravity device, free energy device, a way to prolong life, prevent aging, or to enhance intelligence, you will get one of these national security orders, which states that your invention has been deemed to be a detriment against the national security of the United States. Therefore, you cannot share it with anybody. Over 6,000 of these have been issued. Therefore, they want us to keep using rockets to go into space. They want us to keep using oil, nuclear, and coal for power. They want to keep our lives short and keep us dumb. 1952, the Nazis flex their muscles to show who's boss, fly their craft coming out of Antarctica over the Capitol building to intimidate the Truman Eisenhower administrations. Now, the Vatican had its fingers in this deeply. Cardinal Francis Spellman, Knight of Malta, who's considered the, quote, Grand Protector. A lot to say about this guy. Anyway, he met with the president to discuss containment for the Vatican and talking about how it was successful during the 1947 sightings when he met with the Secretary of War and that they actually had been briefed on a defense plan was written. So the Vatican was very concerned about having containment of this issue, that it didn't get out into the public awareness. Now, the Vatican was in full support of the Nazis. They worked in coordination with the MJ-12 and the CIA. They issued thousands of passports to the Nazis in order to help them escape to South America through the rat lines. Now, it's just kind of interesting that the Nazis entered into an alliance with the Draco reptilians in the 1930s. You know, with the Vatican's use of symbology, it can make you wonder if a much older reptilian alliance was made with them centuries ago. MJ-12 made extreme efforts to keep the Nazi secret space program and the extraterrestrial presence secret from the public. They used psychological warfare and even murder, as they did with MJ-12 member James Forrestal in 1949, and replaced him with CIA Director General Walter B. Smith. CIA Director Walter B. Smith writes a memo to use the UFO matter for psychological warfare purposes. And just 2 months later, George Adamski's claiming contact with a being named Orthon, with a spaceship from the planet Venus. This is revealed as being a psyop, as the Adamski's photograph, which the public was unaware of in the time in 1952, was actually a Nazi Hannibal Chu design. Now, later, the Vatican awards George Adamski with a gold medallion for his contributions. Then the CIA rolls out Einstein, along with these other guys, to make you think that they're an intelligent group that doesn't believe there's anything to the UFO reality, and you shouldn't either, by the Robinson panel. 1954, a major event happens with President Eisenhower meeting with the Galactic Federation of Worlds at Moorduck Air Force Base, and had planned on public disclosure in May of that year. They had warned him not to trust the deceptive Orion Nebu Grays. They had several people there they wanted to see what the reaction of the public. They had scientists, they had clergymen, they had metaphysicians, you know, different people from different sectors of the public that would see what the reaction was. Gerald Light was one of them. He wrote a letter to Meade Lane. He was a metaphysician. And in the letter, he says, "It is my conviction that President Eisenhower will ignore the terrific conflict between the various authorities and go directly to the people via radio and television. If the impasse continues much longer, from what I could gather, an official statement to the country is being prepared for the delivery about the middle of May. Also there, for representing the Vatican, was Cardinal Francis McIntyre. He lied and broke his security oath, immediately went to the Pope and spilled the beans. And the Pope created the Vatican Intelligence Agency for the purpose of essentially spying and keeping tabs of what the U.S. government is doing with the extraterrestrial matter to make sure they maintain containment. Now, MJ-12, the newly created MJ-12 group, headed by none other than Alan Dulles, circumvents Eisenhower and signs a treaty with the Nebu Grays, where they're supposed to only abduct a certain amount of people and give an account of it, and in exchange, they would give them some technology. Well, the Nebu Gray hybrid program was basically to assimilate our planet. Against the 1954 Grenada Treaty Agreement, the Nebu abducted many millions on Earth to use their DNA to create millions of gray hybrids in underground and off-planet facilities that could adapt to our planet. Their genetics could connect them to the hive mind queen in Orion to effectively assimilate our planet. This was to bypass the laws of the Prime Directive. Colonel Philip Corso was on Eisenhower's National Security Council staff, where he said, quote, "These creatures weren't benevolent alien beings who had come to enlighten human beings. They were genetically altered human automatons, cloned biological entities, actually who were harvesting biological specimens on Earth for their own experimentation. As long as we were incapable of defending ourselves, we had to allow them to intrude as they wish. We had negotiated a kind of surrender with them. As long as we couldn't fight them, they dictated the terms because they knew what we feared most was disclosure." Now, the operations originally were Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio, and they moved them all to Area 51 and S4 under the control of the CIA for greater secrecy. Now, Dr. Stephen Greer, I told him about this meeting, and he attended, and he said that we have actionable intelligence from someone who was working at the National Security Agency that's been in the vault. All of this went deep black because they figured out the point of gravity control. So since 1954 October of that year, we have not needed rockets, jets, internal combustion engines, and surface roadways between cities. I say this with authority that this is the case. Now, they didn't want anybody reporting UFOs in the air or coming out of the water. The JANF 146C, under the Espionage Act, provided severe penalties for anybody disclosing this. So this is another way of keeping the public quiet. Now, instead of Eisenhower's planned May disclosure on radio and television, instead, former Nazi SS officer Prince Bernhard sets up the yearly secret Bilderberg meetings, who currently they're having one in Sweden this year. Now, the Bilderberg meetings are highly secret. They gather highly influential people. They, together with the Council of Foreign Relations and Trilateral Commission, working with media psychological think tanks, corroborate on the forming of the public's perceptions. They have all their people in key positions across all the mainstream media outlets. So from 1955 to 2001, our legal constitutional government is now being denied access, and the control of the public's perceptions through the media expands. 1955, President Eisenhower lost control to a Nazi extraterrestrial alliance. They had to negotiate an agreement surrender at Holloman Air Force Base. Brigadier General Stephen Lumpkin on Eisenhower's staff made it clear that Eisenhower got sold out, that it was going into the control of corporations, and that, quote, "it was not going to be in the best of hands." 1955, 33rd degree Freemason Walt Disney with Wernher von Braun, who knew very well that they didn't need rockets to go into space, we used television to sell the public that the use of rocket propulsion is the future of space travel. in overcoming Earth's gravity. Interestingly, in 1956, Operation Deep Freeze is transferring supplies and personnel to Antarctica. 1956, Young Men magazine talked about the gravity engines. Nothing more public was heard on the subject after this came out. Now, the people who had the gravity engines, the Nazis, were flying around and landing. One landed in Nebraska, and Reinhold Schmidt said they were speaking in High German language, very good High German language, he commented. And Willard in Oahu sees a Nazi craft with swastika and Iron Cross on it, and the pilot had a German Nazi uniform and with a German accent. So they were flying around and landing at this time. Now, a real spacecraft from Venus lands in Alexandria, Virginia, with Ambassador Val Thor of the Galactic Federation of Worlds to meet with President Eisenhower. And for a period of 3 years, he stays with VIP status at the Pentagon to attempt to assist Eisenhower with the situation. 1957, Professor Heinz Eisnick, then chairman of the psychology department, University of London, over there where you are, Danny, wrote a letter insinuating that there was a gigantic conspiracy involving some 30 major universities all over the world and hundreds of highly respected scientists who silenced the truth about what they knew about the powers of human consciousness to affect reality. Now you have to ask, why would such a gigantic effort to suppress something like this? The secret societies and the power of human consciousness to affect reality. The Nazis, everyone knows, were deeply into the occult and secret societies. They knew very well the power of the collective consciousness to affect reality. They know that the human consciousness co-creates reality based on what the mind believes to be true and real. This process is amplified when instilled in the collective consciousness of the masses through the media. They are projecting what they want in your mind so that you co-creatively build that reality in support of their agenda. If you look at the 33rd degree Freemasons, Knights of Malta, Skull and Bones, the people in top key influential positions, such as US presidents, world leaders, intelligence, military, media, and entertainment, you can see that this network is highly influential. 1958, the NASA is created and run by, guess what, a former Nazi SS officer, keeping us believing we need rockets to overcome gravity, Dr. Kurt de Bus, when the Nazis, decades earlier, secretly achieved anti-gravity. Now, due to the decades of secrecy and deception, Earth's population believes we are still at a stage 2 level, while secretly we have achieved a stage 3 civilization, which is considered to be interstellar. Stage 3 is a culture having reached interstellar capacity and made contact by its own process with another galactic civilization. So we have a planet that thinks we're stage 2, but behind the curtain, we're actually a stage 3 civilization. So this curtain that's hanging between these two realities needs to be removed.
Yes.
1958, President Eisenhower is denied access. MJ-12 told him he no longer had jurisdiction over the Operations Area 51 and was denied access. And he told the CIA operative, who on his deathbed testimony, he later testified about this. He said, quote, I want you to go and your boss to fly out there, and I want you to give him a personal message to tell him whoever is in charge, they have this coming week to get into Washington and report to me. And if they don't, I'm going to get the First Army out of Colorado, and we're going to take the base over. I don't care what kind of classified material you got. We're going to rip this thing apart. And he was pissed.
Mhm.
Now, you can imagine a five-star general. He's not going to roll over easily. And it makes sense that these two U.S. Marine Corps Special Section Secret Space Program witnesses testified saying that a U.S. Marine Corps Special Section was created by a secret executive order by President Eisenhower as a kind of future institutional safeguard to protect our constitutional republic. Now, 1959, Nikola Tesla taught Otis Carr how to create an anti-gravity vehicle in 1937. By 1959, Otis Carr did create one and he patented it. 2 weeks later, after a successful test flight, the FBI and other government agencies in a secret raid shut down the whole operation and confiscated everything. They told him that he was a threat to overthrow the monetary system of the United States. 1959, Dr. Hermann Oberth, father of modern rocketry, who was Dr. Werner von Braun's mentor, publicly stated that they were helped by the people of other worlds.
Yeah.
1960, President Eisenhower travels down to Bariloche, Argentina, which is the known Nazi hideout of Adolf Hitler. Considering Hitler is alive at this time, according to the JFK files, did Eisenhower travel there simply for fostering relations with President Frondizi, or could this be a cover story for Eisenhower actually having a meeting with Hitler? So in 1961, in his farewell address, President Eisenhower attempted to warn the public to take nothing for granted, that only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry, that's all you viewers out there, could protect our future from unwarranted influences that had infiltrated within the military-industrial complex that had been infiltrated by the Fourth Reich. President Kennedy is denied access. President John F. Kennedy sends a top-secret memo to the CIA director to release the UFO files. This triggers an MJ-12 directive by Allen Dulles, and 10 days later, he's assassinated. The handwritten note, 2 days before JFK's assassination, down here, says Angleton has MJ directive. Angleton was James Jesus Angleton, operated under Allen Dulles. The recovered, this is an authenticated document, by the way, a recovered MJ-12 document revealed that Allen Dulles, MJ-1, who was head of MJ-12, had set up an assassination directive that was used against John F. Kennedy. And of course, they assign Allen Dulles as the head of the Warren Commission on the assassination, who said there was no conspiracy, it was a lone gunman, and all these Allen Dulles, Earl Warren, Lyndon Johnson, Gerald Ford were all 33rd degree Freemasons. Later, the secret CIA dispatch was sent to all its agents to use the label, quote, conspiracy theorists to discredit anyone who challenges the official narrative that people were questioning. There was a lot of let's say, discrepancies in the Warren report. 1966. Now, consider that the Galactic Federation of Worlds since the 1940s has been working with the Office of Naval Intelligence and delivered the Star Trek script to Gene Roddenberry. This was psychologically in the public mind to create a bridge in the public's imagination for these advanced concepts such as the Prime Directive, teleportation, warp drive, so forth. 1969, Project Blue Book is terminated, that there's absolutely no evidence of the UFO ET reality, and that as a result of reports since 1948 that anything unidentified doesn't represent any advanced technology, that's more than what we have, and that none of it is extraterrestrial. The same year, MUFON is created. 1977, President Carter is denied access. One of the witnesses that joined me in Washington, Daniel Sheehan, testified that Carter, who actually he had a UFO experience and he filed a UFO report and made it his campaign promise to release the UFO files, was denied by George Bush Sr., the CIA director. The 1981 Reagan briefing excerpts by William Casey. The briefing disclosed that psychological program was using the media to carefully craft public perception of the UFO phenomenon. They said, quote, the first person who helped us with this disinformation program was Mr. George Adamski back in the 1950s, and that the National Security Council felt disclosure would lead to nationwide panic if the information about UFOs and alien visitation was released, causing panic among religious leaders worldwide. Heaven forbid. The briefing also revealed the influence of, quote, all productions of UFO-related movies. This helps the public keep their minds open, but also allows to keep their secret aircraft away from the public's knowledge. And William Casey, Knight of Malta, famously said, we'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the public believes is false. 1983. This is a start. In 1983, there was 50 media companies. You imagine how difficult, ever since 1950 Project Operation Mockingbird, to control the media. Imagine how difficult it is to control 50 media companies. So they had secret meetings, the CIA, in Sun Valley, Idaho, to consolidate media control from 50 down to only 6 media corporations that centrally control the mainstream media. And you have to think about the greatest tool of psychological warfare. I love the statement. When a well-packaged web of lies was sold gradually to the masses over generations, the truth will seem utterly preposterous and the speaker a raving lunatic. Today we continue to have an infiltration over several generations of a domestic enemy that is centrally controlling our information systems, using psychological warfare to support an agenda that is against an unsuspecting public. But as more evidence of this is being revealed, more and more are starting to see this fact. Once you can see how the infiltration occurred and how the matrix of perception was created, then the propaganda that hid the truth is then destroyed by the disclosure of evidence that reveals the truth. As Dr. Joseph Goebbels, head of Nazi Germany's Ministry of Propaganda, once said, propaganda becomes ineffective the moment we become aware of it. 1993, President Clinton is denied access. Famed White House correspondent Sarah McClendon asked him why he wasn't doing anything to disclose UFO matter, and he replied, Sarah, there's a secret government in the government, and I don't control it. Clinton had the CIA director attempt to look into it through all his channels. The CIA director is denied access. He brought Dr. Stephen Greer into a 3-hour meeting where he said to Dr. Greer, quote, I know this is real. I'm trying to figure out why the hell I can't gain access to it. Dr. Greer, becoming aware that the CIA director is being denied access, he met with some military advisors who advised him to start collecting witnesses. And this is the year 1993. That same year, a meeting outside Area 51 takes place. First time meeting with S4 scientist Bob Lazar with researchers. There were no recordings were allowed, but I was in the front row and had my camcorder going for a full 2 hours, being hit with questions by these researchers. Over the decades that followed, his testimony has remained 100% consistent. In fact, the element 115 that was said to be used for the power source for the Zeta Reticuli craft that he was doing reverse engineering operations. 1 decade later, scientists finally discovered element 115, and it is exactly as Bob Lazar stated. It was stable evidence. So Area 51 base was very upset about these meetings outside the base, and they issued a NRO, that's National Reconnaissance Office, Special Security Advisory to all base personnel. On this distribution list, on this document, they list things such as cosmic ops, magi ops. These were unacknowledged special access programs that were reverse engineering, like the Zeta Reticuli craft that Bob Lazar was working on. So in 1997, Dr. Greer somehow acquires that NRO document showing these unacknowledged special access programs to a Pentagon meeting with the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Vice Admiral Thomas Wilson. Vice Admiral Wilson is denied access. He's not only denied access, but he's threatened to drop the inquiry immediately or see an early retirement and lose rank. The admiral was mad as hell, as you can imagine. He told Dr. Greer, well, as far as I'm concerned, if you can get your people, he's collected these witnesses since 1993 who can talk about this matter on record, in other words, willing to testify under oath. You have my permission to go to the mainstream media with this and expose this illegal group. And so, here you have somebody of high constitutional authority being denied access and recognizing that these are illegal operations. So, in the years 2001 and 2020, 20th century witnesses come forward with evidence to the world. The controlled media sanitizes the full disclosure from the public. And then 21st century secret space program witnesses start coming forward. So in 2001, 21 witnesses testified before the mainstream media of the world. We were backed by over 500 military intelligence witnesses. I was one of those witnesses. Some of what was disclosed on May 9th, 2001, was that our legal constitutional government is being denied access, including presidents, CIA directors, and heads of intelligence, that no legal oversight to this rogue unacknowledged special access program, taking in billions, probably trillions of dollars. We have the scientists within these special access programs that can prove before an open congressional hearing that we have zero-point energy technologies that could end energy and environmental crisis, that we haven't needed nuclear, oil, and coal for decades, that before we went to the moon, a lunar base on the far side of the moon was visually witnessed at an NSA facility, that astronauts saw extraterrestrial craft on the moon and were sworn to secrecy about what happened when they landed on the moon in 1969. Now, William Tomkins, working at the TRW facility, got to see the live feed that was not censored and the large, massive reptilian craft that were lined up on the far side of the crater. This little speck is the lunar module, just to get a size comparison. Some ham radio operators on Earth, myself being one, that I know that in order to pick up the signal from the moon, you have to use a highly directional antenna and track the moon. Though some people say, we never went there. Well, I know people who have actually received this transmission that came from NASA that said, NASA, what's there? Mission Control calling Apollo 11. Neil Armstrong responds by saying, "These babies are huge, sir, enormous. Oh my God, you wouldn't believe it. I'm telling you, there's other spacecraft out there, lined up on the far side of the crater edge. They're on the moon watching us." NASA airbrushes the UFO images out of the photos before releasing to the public. 57 different extraterrestrial species as of 1989 had been cataloged, according to a retrieval team member. Red glowing disk UFO craft over the missile silos have shut down multiple nuclear weapons at missile launch facilities, like 10 of them, all in a row, like that. They could have destroyed it, but they just shut them down. U.S. Navy ships reporting disc-shaped craft coming out of the ocean in secret reports. That was my report. Werner von Braun, in his deathbed testimony, disclosed that there was a series of false flag scenarios that had been pre-planned. The next event was terrorist, which actually happened, predicted 4 months later on 9/11, with the final planned event to be a false flag alien invasion. Alien reproduction vehicles that can go faster than the speed of light were built back in the 1950s, were witnessed in 1988 at Norton Air Force Base, and much more. The place was packed, one of the largest events in the history of the National Press Club, packed with reporters, 22 cameras in the back row. The event inspired a teaching professor. Dr. Michael Sala was teaching in a major university. His interest in this subject got him fired from the university. He showed the National Press Club 2-hour witness testimonies to his witnesses. Interestingly, they thought the people were making it up. Dr. Sala has since spent full time doing in-depth researching of the subject and providing a platform for many different perspectives on the topic of exopolitics at exopolitics.org. The event also inspired a computer hacker, Gary McKinnon, who discovered, as he hacked into the NASA computer systems revealing the U.S. Navy Solar Warden secret space program with an image of large cigar-shaped craft labeled the USS Hillenkotter and the LeMay, both of which were MJ-12 members, by the way, fleet-to-fleet transfer, and a list of non-terrestrial officers. Also, confirm witness Donna Hare's testimony of evidence of NASA image manipulations. They wanted to put the poor guy away for 70 years in prison for that. The mainstream media, myself being an ex-ABC newsman, I noticed that all the media did in lockstep together what's called a limited hangout. These explosive testimonies were reduced down to saying that we want to have a congressional hearing on simply the reality of UFOs, not revealing what Admiral Wilson wanted disclosed to the public. In fact, CBS out of Los Angeles came down to San Diego to interview me, which I said I wouldn't do this unless I could say we have the scientists who can prove we have zero-point energy. We haven't needed these obsolete technologies. They promised. Later, the producer said, I'm sorry, I never had this happen before, but the higher executives made me cut that part out. Years 2020 to 2025, many voices continue to come forward, revealing both corroborating and also conflicting information. Some claim direct face-to-face contact, others through channeling, hypnotic regression, remote viewing, etc., base their information. The importance of evidence for discerning what the truth is. As Carl Sagan once said, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. The following is a review of corroborating evidence presented. Some even had official documentation supporting their testimony. The 20th century witnesses. Note that each of the witnesses that testified in front of the mainstream media of the world in 2001 at National Press Club in Washington, D.C., stated they were willing to testify under oath before a congressional hearing. If falsifying could lead to a penalty of perjury for bearing false witness and could be subject to a prison sentence up to 4 years and thousands of dollars in fines. Some even broke national security oaths with penalties up to 7 years in prison in order to disclose this important information with absolutely nothing to gain. Myself, I attempted through a FOIA request to the Chief of Naval Operations to obtain a secret classified report that I received back in 1969. But was notified that the ship's records had been destroyed. So unlike the other witnesses, I was not able to provide documentation. John Callahan, head of the FAA division head, where the CIA in a meeting swore everybody to secrecy and confiscated all of his data. They didn't realize that he had backups of all the data, which he brought with him to the National Press Club.
Smart man.
Naval Commander Graham Bethune, a wonderful man who he brought official U.S. Navy report of his encounter with the USO. It came out of the ocean and came right up to his aircraft with his aircraft. So he brought the official U.S. Navy report. U.S. Air Force Captain Robert Salas, he brought the official U.S. Air Force Office of Special Investigation report detailing the UFOs shutting down the nuclear ICBM missiles at Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana. Mark McCandish. Mark brought documentation acknowledging the ARV exhibit and a military photograph that was taken of one of the ARVs in 1967. Note that in 2021, Mark McCandish was found dead before presenting evidence. He had planned on giving testimony that the U.S. had already developed anti-gravity craft at the June 2021 Senate Intelligence Committee on UFO UAPs. 2 months prior, he was found dead with a bullet to his head and ruled a suicide. You have to wonder, if you were planning on doing an alien false flag event, you would probably want to deny the reality that we already have anti-gravity craft that could look like this. This is probably why, people like Dr. Eric Davis and the New York Times, all these different voices are saying, yes, we have reverse engineering, but we've made absolutely no progress. So they keep that narrative going, and it's very suspicious. 21st century witnesses. 21st century witnesses have been involved in secret space programs because of the nature of these programs. Bringing any type of documentation or proof is nearly impossible. Because of this very nature, anyone can fabricate a testimony which is useful for counterintelligence operations that wish to obfuscate the real truth from the public through counter-disclosure assets. Some are doing so knowingly, and some simply delusional or seeking attention. A major exception regarding documented proof of involvement within the U.S. Navy's secret space program is William Tomkins. His mission was an information disseminator from the U.S. Navy spies embedded in the Nazi secret space program to think tanks in order to attempt to decipher the advanced technology given to the Nazis by the Draco reptilians in Antarctica. Thanks to Dr. Michael Salla FOIA requests, we have additional documents that substantiate William Tompkins' testimony. The 20 and Back program. Using advanced time and age regression technology, the 20 and Back program will enlist somebody for 20 years tour of duty in space, age and time regress them back to the point of enlistment, wipe their memory, and as 20 years goes along on this timeline, they start having total recall of their service. This advanced technology that can tune backwards and forwards and affect the holographic field in time was verified and substantiated, actually. The holographic field has a time vector, which is tunable. This fact was substantiated in the project that I worked with Dr. Marcel Vogel. Primitive in comparison to the extraterrestrial technology of the medbeds, it nevertheless proved that the holographic field can be tuned through in time. Dr. Vogel, the holographic camera project. This was patented in Paris, France in 1955. Thousands of photos were taken with this. It could project using, like, say, a drop of blood, the holographic pattern tuned into and put onto a photographic plate and can tune forwards and backwards into time. This is a pregnant woman that's 50 miles away using a drop of blood because a drop of blood contains her complete holographic whole, which also contains her holographic whole moving backwards and forwards in the time. So this proves that the reality that we're all in is indeed holographic. Here you can see tuned into a 1 month, 2 month, 3, and 6 months pregnancy moving through the holographic field of time. Here you can see a homeopathic pill. You can see the emanations of the actual flower remedy of the homeopathic remedy of the pill. And this is just taking a seed of a lily flower, showing tuning through its future plant radiations of future cycles of the bulb and flowering cycle of that seed. In researching the testimonies of those claiming to be in the secret space program over the years, people like U.S. Army Secret Space Program insider JP, some provided evidence, such as photographic evidence of this Nordic spacecraft as it was departing. JP took a photograph of it. There's also a cigar-shaped craft. Since 2008, he went public and working with Dr. Michael Salla. John Charles Moyen was the first to disclose his involvement in the secret space program when he tape recorded his testimony on a public radio broadcast when he was 23, back in 1992, on a radio station in France. He has also revealed numerous physical evidence in his movie production titled Starseed Revelation 2. Tony Rodriguez. Tony was involuntarily recruited into a 20 and Back program where he was utilized nefariously by black military operations and the Nazi Nachtwaffen. He was able to find supporting evidence and documents linked to the secret programs and has identified places on Earth he was taken to during his 20 and Back that was partially done on Earth. He is also on the Moon, Mars, and the Ceres German colony. Randy Kramer said that he served as a pilot with a secret space program called the Earth Defense Force, where he patrolled the solar system from a cigar-shaped spacecraft carrier. Randy Kramer passed a polygraph examination of his testimony. Jason Rice served in the Interplanetary Defense and Reaction Forces, where he participated in combat missions on distant planets controlled by reptilian forces. Jason passed a polygraph exam of his testimony. Now, amongst these secret space program witnesses, as mentioned earlier, it can easily be hijacked, where somebody could gather all this information, have like 90% just sound like solid evidence, and then have like 10% being a lie. And then what they do through association, they come out and say, "Oh, I just made the whole thing up," or "the earth is flat," or say something discrediting that through association attempts to counter the disclosure of the real witnesses. And in curious case of Corey Good, in a court disposition hearing, Corey Good admits that he never went physically into space and that much of his testimony originated from his imagination for his entertainment products. This may explain why he declined a polygraph exam, according to Jay Widener.
Yeah.
Contactees and the Galactic Federation. There have been many contactees, and some have had face-to-face interactions with extraterrestrials, and some have actually been on board their spacecraft and taken off planet. Many have spoken of the Galactic Federation, but few, if any, have been able to provide corroborating evidence to support their testimony, except one contactee. Elena Danan was abducted by Orion Graves when she was 9 years old and rescued by the Galactic Federation of Worlds, which had to repurpose the tracking implant to be a quantum communication device linked to the Federation High Commander Thor Hanaredion. She has graciously taken on the mission to be their emissary and be a communication bridge between the Federation and the people of Earth. To date, there have been 27 corroborations of Elena Danan's information. The following is a list of this corroborating information in chronological order. I wish to first acknowledge Dr. Michael Salla for his outstanding research work and documentation of many of these following events that can be found on exopolitics.org. Okay. Okay. On the night of November 9th and 10th of 2018, Elena saw red glowing ships hovering over the bay on the west coast of Ireland. Then, in a flash of sparkling light showering down upon her bedroom, she was beamed up inside Thorhan's ship in a big flash of blue light. The following morning, Irish newspapers printed that there had been UFO sightings over the west of the country. Here are the radio recordings of pilots to the air control tower describing the encountering of this fleet of UFOs at high speed.
Okay, sir, there's nothing showing on either primary or secondary.
Okay, it was moving so fast, in fact, we can no longer see it, but yes, thank you. It's to come up on our left-hand side and then rapidly veer to the north. We saw bright light and then it just disappeared at a very high speed. We were just wondering. We didn't think it was a likely collision course, we were just wondering what that could have been.
Meteor or another object making some kind of re-entry. Appeared to be multiple objects following the same sort of trajectory. Very bright from where we were.
Okay, that's copied. And is there a direction it was going in or anything?
Virgin 76. I saw two bright lights, 11 o'clock, seem to back over to the right and then climb away at speed, at least from our perspective.
Okay, we're passing that on now, thank you.
That's all good. Okay, just so you know that other aircraft in the air have also reported the same thing, so we're going to have a look and see.
Elena Danan published A Gift from the Stars 3 months before Professor Haim Rashed announced publicly that some governments were working secretly with the Galactic Federation of Worlds, and that President Trump was on the verge of extraterrestrial disclosure, but was told to hold back by the Galactic Federation since we weren't at the right level. A former employee at McMurdo Base in Antarctica confirmed Elena's information about the Dark Fleet evacuating Antarctica and handing over the base to the Chinese. He saw many Germans leaving in the middle of the 2021 Antarctic winter and many Chinese arriving at the same time. Thorhan reveals the Jupiter meeting agreements with the Galactic Federation of Worlds, meeting with representatives of the Earth Alliance. This corroborates with sightings of the Artemis Accords among countries, as the Federation wants to work with a unified global civilization. Further confirmation by U.S. Command Leader James Dickinson that over 100 agreements have been reached with different countries, agencies, and corporations for space-related activities. Thorhan reveals the full text of the Prime Directive, matching what was given to Gene Roddenberry through the connections of the Office of Naval Intelligence that was working with the Galactic Federation of Worlds. Dr. Michael Salla discovers a Star Trek book, unbeknownst to Elena, titled, quote, The Federation, where the text given to Gene Roddenberry matches almost exactly. Thorhan reveals meetings on Ganymede, which corroborates with Dr. Michael Salla's witness JP, who later reports his mission going to Ganymede as support personnel, and Alex Collier, Andromeda contactee, also corroborates Thorhan's information. Thorhan reveals the arrival of the Intergalactic Confederation is activating space arcs in our solar system, which corroborates with U.S. Army insider JP, who visited one of the activated space arcs on the moon. Thorhan reveals that there is a very large space arc in the Atlantic Ocean, a week before military witness JP goes on a mission to the Atlantic Arc. Jean-Charles Moyen and Elena Danand describe trips they both took to the Galactic Federation mothership called the Excelsior, and then to Lake Vostok in Antarctica with Thorhan, where they witnessed a space arc with blue giants sleeping in stasis chambers. Elena describes how she was tasked by the Galactic Federation to witness John Charles as he toured the Lake Vostok arc. In Elena's 2020 book, quote, A Gift from the Stars, where she detailed 110 different extraterrestrial races and the planets they inhabit, she showed an illustration that the Proxima Centauri system having 3 big inhabited planets. 2 years later, when NASA had greater telescopic abilities, in February of 2022, NASA discovered, just exactly as Elena had described, a 3rd planet in the Proxima Centauri system. What are the odds? Jean-Charles Moyen has a meeting with Elena on the mothership Excelsior and describes the exact experience on board. From Elena's book, quote, The Cedars, she says, quote, The memory of these events was reconstructed by my testimony and the testimony of John Charles Moyen put together. John Charles is a French super soldier that was recruited for a 20-and-back program in the Solar Warden Fleet. I met him through Dr. Michael Salla, and we became friends after realizing with stupefaction that the extraterrestrial mothership he was visiting for leisure time when he was in service and that was named the Excelsior was indeed the same battle station where Thorhan lives and works. John Charles and I compared identical memories of a particular cafeteria with extremely detailed description of food replicators, bars with floating androids serving ionized blue drinks, the interior design of the station, teleportation pads, etc., unquote. Thorhan says, watch for activity on Neptune to be revealed. And 2 weeks later, NASA and multiple scientific articles substantiates this, showing an unexpected large red heat abnormality on the surface of Neptune from a space arc activating. Thorhan said, quote, the ships are coming. The Guardians are on the outer orbit of Terra, 4 ships for the moment. They are watching in time dilation, suspended in time like the old Oumuamua. It was one of their ships. It was activated. The ones in the ice belt have activated too, and all the others, one by one, on all the planets. Neptune is next. You will see. You will hear about Neptune soon. Okay, this is something I've been involved with. This date marks the start of a question and answer exchange that I've done through Elena, relaying the information from Jen Hanaredian, who is Thorhan's younger brother, a Palladian scientist called a star maker, and is currently performing terraforming operations on the planet Mars. What I have found is all the information Jen Han has shared in regards to the science and interfacing of consciousness with quartz crystals to corroborate perfectly with what IBM's head scientist, Dr. Marcel Vogel, was able to quantify and measure in his laboratory. These exchanges of science and technology understanding from the world have been ongoing for over 3 years now. In order to help in developing these advanced technologies, I've assembled a small international team of scientists. We hope soon to present credible scientific evidence establishing the reality of this technology, which can potentially be used for beneficial applications on our planet. Stay tuned. Evidence that can be scientifically verified and established from these exchanges may be coming very soon. On April 27, 2022, Thorhan on Mars communicating to Elena and says, quote, that there had been a severe earthquake due to the terraforming operations that have started, unquote. On May 4th, 1 week later, NASA reports the largest quake on Mars ever detected in our solar system. Information like this, you just simply can't make up. Thorhan revealed to Elena on October 10th, 2021, quote, the fleet of Intergalactic Confederation has arrived in the star system. The ships will be stationed around Jupiter for a while until further notice move nearer to Earth's orbit, unquote. Thorhan reveals the Intergalactic Confederation fleet is approaching nearer to Earth's orbit. This was seen on the International Space Station camera feeds showing a fleet formation of more than 30 spacecraft passing in full view of the camera. This is part of a disclosure plan. A huge fleet of the Intergalactic Confederation ships parked behind Jupiter being spotted on the James Webb Space Telescope, showing a mysterious cold spot to the right of Europa, which Una of the Intergalactic Confederation said to Elena, salutations to who will read this communication I am transmitting now. Here, First Altian Emissary Una, speaking on behalf of the Intergalactic Confederation Council of 24. There are 138 motherships, part of the Nataru Alliance in your star system named Sol, with their fleets. This number represents several thousands of craft. 550 vessels of the Intergalactic Confederation have entered your star system and are stationed in orbit of your planet named Jupiter, and 4 are at present moment in orbit of your planet Terra. The recently disclosed image of your planet Jupiter displays the cloud of orbital rocks plus the defense grid of the ships from the Ashtar outposts, plus some of our motherships. The majority of our fleet is behind the planet Jupiter, hidden from your sight. The disclosure of this image is not an error, but a move from the Terran Alliance in charge of the program. Terran instances may name our ships, quote, cold spots. There is truth. More visuals to come. The plan is on schedule, one step at a time. We are holding your hand, and you must not look back. Instead, look up. In the greater design of the universe, you are already on the other side of the bridge. At the GISIC 2022 Galactic Spiritual Informers Conference that Danny wonderfully presents, Tony Rodriguez was talking to Elena about his upcoming new book, about the symbols that he saw. He didn't tell Elena the book was about star making, which is their term for terraforming. As Tony started to describe the symbol to Elena with a drawing in his spiral notebook as shown, Elena says, it looks like the star-making designator patch she saw on Jen Han's uniform, who is a star maker. This was a corroborating surprise to Tony, as he had never told Elena his book was about star making. Elena physically went with Thor Hanaredian to the Meton ship and received by High Commander Haben from Meton. Haben agreed to bring her to the time-looking device, where Elena was able to view the future of Terra 20 years from now. High Commander Haben said to Elena, quote, all of these technologies that you saw existing 20 years from now are being produced now in this precise moment. Everything is real. Everything exists already. It's ready for when the people of Terra are ready. And a new leader will come, and the dark will vanish because the light will rise. All the real leaders will rise all over the planet Earth as you call it. And it is now, very soon, the time when you stand up and the hand we held to you, you finally take it, and we are family, unquote. Soon afterward, on March 4th, 2023, President Trump talks about an upcoming quantum leap in technology and the building of futuristic new cities and advanced technologies with private vertical takeoff and landing vehicles for civilians, flying cars, etc., confirming not only what Elena saw from the near future, but also about the device that Thorhan gave to General Van Herk containing blueprints of a new advanced technologies. This suggests the release of classified new energy and anti-gravity technologies is coming soon. On January 1st, 2023, Elena shared a message from High Commander Ardana, who said that in 2023 will be the year of rediscovery and opening of the pyramids. Ardana ended her message by saying, quote, open the pyramids, so rush to the pyramids, focus on the pyramids. This year opens the pyramids, unquote. Then, on March 2nd, 2023, archaeologists discover a secret chamber inside the Great Pyramid of Giza. Elena describes on January 7, 2023, a meeting that Thor Hanaredian had with a secret underground military facility in the Blue Ridge Mountains called the Raven Rock Mountain Complex to discuss an extraterrestrial disclosure plan developed by the Earth Alliance by military leaders and the Galactic Federation of Worlds, which he witnessed through the eyes of Thorhan as he gave an oblong storage device to a general of the Earth Alliance. This device contained directives from the Galactic Federation of Worlds regarding disclosure, with a lot of information in it and directives. Dr. Michael Salla sent Elena a list of 44 current active duty 4-star generals in the U.S. military, and out of all of them, she identified General Van Herk as the most resembling the officer she saw that Thorhan gave the directives to. General Van Herk was at the time the Joint Commander of the United States Northern Command and the Northern American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, both of which are headquartered in Peterson Space Force Base in Colorado Springs, Colorado. General Van Herk was appointed to those positions and promoted to a 4-star rank during the Trump administration. Supporting what Elena had disclosed regarding regressive extraterrestrial groups that have been removed from our solar system with the help of the Galactic Federation of Worlds and the Earth Alliance in the years 2021 through 2022, John Peterson from the Arlington Institute, a U.S. Navy-funded think tank, confirmed that regressive ET groups have been removed from our solar system and cites that this is based upon 3 independent sources. In this interview with Greg Braden, he stated, the sources that I have are suggesting that, in fact, there have been a major visit last calendar year, 2022, that the good forces, if you will, have made extraordinary kind of advances and have essentially driven the negative forces off the planet and out of the solar system, at least something like that. And therefore, what is happening is that the human component, human leadership elements, who have used to have the cover and resources and other kinds of things from this off-planet group, and there's a number of groups in a larger group, they've always had direction and help and resources and so on. And now that's gone. I've got this from 3 independent sources that's gone. And that those folks who we all kind of presume to be at the top and kind of driving things are scrambling very hard to try to hang on because they've lost their kind of sponsor, if you will, unquote. On July 8th, 2023, Dr. Michael Sella asked questions to Thorhan via Elena about a mega project called the Hub. Thorhan reveals that, quote, when the hub will be finished, when civilians from Terra will be able to come. This is not now, will take some time. Some civilian flights are being tested in the orbit of Terra. About a month later, on August 10th, 2023, the first civilian flights into space by Virgin Galactic were then launched. Elena Danaan releases Encyclopedia Galactica, which corroborates with scientists that planet TRAPPIST-1H may be composed almost entirely of water. The scientists stated that the seventh planet TRAPPIST-1H is the most removed from the star as well as the smallest in the entire system, unlike the other planets. 1H may be composed almost entirely of water. Thorhan Aredian discloses that the Aerospace Corporation attempts to end-run the Jupiter agreements 2 days prior to its intent being published. The Aerospace Corporation was doing this as an end-run to it being excluded from the Jupiter agreements signed in July 2021, which did not allow certain nefarious activities in space. The Aerospace Corporation has been apparently threatened by the information that Elena Danaan has been disclosed. This was revealed by Mr. Dave Rossi, inventor, a contractor working with diverse organizations on secret technology programs, who stated the following, quote, specifically, what I can tell you is that there is, in terms of a department, or dare I say, sub-department, one thing I can tell you is that this is the first time I'm actually saying this publicly. There would be elements out of what we know as the Aerospace Corporation that would be specifically surveying certain individuals. What I can tell you is that there is certainly people that consider it a job to survey Miss Danaan, among others, for many hours a day and weaponize and utilize stigma in an attempt to discredit her and others as well. The name of the company is Aerospace Corporation, founded in 1960. Prior to Iran's April 13, 2024 strike on Israel, Thorhan Aredian disclosed a secret deal made on April 11th between Iran and Israel to avert a massive retaliatory regional war, which did not occur according to occur following Iran's strike on Israel. On August 1st, 2024, Danny Henderson, you know this one well, videos interviews Elena Danaan on her YouTube channel regarding the GISIC 2024 Colorado conference, where Elena guarantees that Thorhan has agreed to do a display in the sky during the conference to all the attendees. This was similar to what was done in France prior. Then on September 27th, 2024, High Commander Thorhan Aredian kept his promise to Elena and displayed a fleet of Federation scout ships to 1,000 witnesses at the place and time promised in a NORAD-restricted no-fly zone. In addition, Thorhan also coordinated with the Earth Alliance for U.S. Navy to fly in a TR-3B triangular shaped spacecraft. In April of 2021, in Elena's book, quote, We Will Never Let You Down, the following was warned by Thorhan Aredian, and Elena posted a video in April of 2021 as well regarding this warning for the future, where Thorhan said, quote, the deep state and their allies want to give a bad name to the Galactic Federation, making people believe they will be the harmful invaders. This preconditioning anti-propaganda has begun already, trying to demonstrate to the world that the Galactic Federation is evil. But we are not fooled, and the Galactic Federation is not going to let this happen, unquote. And today, in 2025, as Thorhan predicted, this exact narrative is being said of the Galactic Federation of Worlds. The full text and details, supportive documentation, and a list of corroborative evidence for Elena Danaan can be found at thewebmatrix.net/elenadanaan.html. In conclusion, all voices are important to take note of. When you hear conflicting testimonies and narratives, research deeper and look for corroborating evidence that backs what the different voices are revealing. Remember, anybody can say anything, but not everybody can back with evidence what they're saying. Doesn't mean they're not telling the truth. As when I went to Washington, I couldn't provide the documentation. But corroborating evidence shows a much higher probability. Use your discernment to sort out the truth that attempts to hide the truth and the psychological warfare that we're all in. Truth is important because it empowers us to see clearly the bigger picture and thus allow us to unite in truth together in order to transform the world toward a liberated future from the secrecy and deceptions of the past that have held back humanity for the agendas of the criminals of humanity. And may that truth guide us toward the liberation of our planet. So there we have it. How long? Oh, went a little bit over, but oh well.
Was just beautiful. That was absolutely perfect. You delivered that. So you're such a good presenter, and it was perfect. And the cataloging, and it's lovely because we were off screen, you and I, so it was mainly your slides that were just coming up. So I'll invite people to go through each slide, look at the information on each slide that Dan has worked so hard to put together for you. Go off, do your research, learn about the history of your planet, as so many people don't know, and it's not through a fault of their own. Sometimes we just don't know where to look. We don't even know to bring to mind that we possibly should be having a look. I wanted to say a few things. One thing was, you mentioned that there was a picture of Denethor. Is it an actual photograph of Denethor?
Yeah, he saved the galaxy, Commander Denethor. Much kudos to him for, basically taking out the Orion Queen, which disabled the Niboo. So he was a major hero. And yeah, that's a picture. It was sometimes mistaken as being Val Thor, but no, that was Commander Denethor. And sitting behind him was Oscar Snyder, who was Phil Snyder's father, and that picture was inside the USS Eldridge, by the way.
So that is again evidence, physical evidence. Not only do we have photographs in the Pentagon and the White House of Val Thor, some call him Valiant Thor, and these are things again for people coming into the information or who don't know that these physical ET men, these human men that just live somewhere else to us on Earth, have been coming to our planet to help and support. And the fact that we actually have a real photograph of Denethor, he's got a very, very strong chin. And that's amazing that we have
Yeah.
that.
Note that he's blonde. He doesn't have dark hair like Val Thor.
Yes, exactly. I also wrote that many have lost their lives in trying to share information, as you so beautifully highlighted. And I wanted to say about the military personnel on the Galactic Federation of Worlds, which is an off-planet military faction that works hand in hand with the Earth Alliance. This is proven over and over and over again. And if you do look closely at what Dan Willis has presented here, you will see physical photographic evidence, supported evidence, government documentation of exactly what we are saying about the Galactic Federation of Worlds, Elena Danaan, and other good people.
Keep in mind, I missed a whole lot of people. I can only fit so much. And if there's other people who are contactees who have, corroborating evidence, I may not be aware of it. So please bring it forward and bring it to our attention, because every voice is important.
Yes, bring your proof, bring your evidence. Let's bring it all. I wanted to say that I believe that Mark Calendish was a friend of yours, an actual friend of yours, wasn't he?
Yeah, it's sad. It's interesting. Like 1 week before he was, suicided, um, Mike Tuber, Air Force intelligence specialist, who revealed that the Tic Tac that everybody knows about from the New York Times in 2017 was actually made by Lockheed. And he came out 1 week before Mark was suicided and said, "Oh, I made the whole thing up. There's nothing to it." As though somebody knocked on both of their doors, and Mark didn't go along with it. And Mark has always been an activist, for the truth, and he had planned on. And if you think about, all these hearings that they have, and you have these people coming out and saying, yes, we have reverse engineering operations, but we made absolutely no progress, and the continual denial and the lie that we don't have advanced anti-gravity craft is just reeks of an agenda that may have been related to the planned false flag alien event. Because if everybody thought, oh, we don't have this type of technology, this must be aliens from outer space attacking us, right?
Yeah, such a nonsense. Since 1969, Dan Willis, Navy whistleblower, has gathered years of evidence via documents corroborating witness testimonies, physical experiences, and is a big deal in disclosure too. You are, Dan. Disclosure, as planned, is still going forward as it was planned. It has not slowed down. What we are seeing now is the threat of global wars because the beast, the dying cabal, the Illuminati, the Dark Alliance has tried to force the hand of fear to everyone, to make everyone fight, make everyone attack, make people lose hope.
That's
Disclosure.
an important point, Danny,
Yes,
because there's so much squabbling going on in the communities right now with conflicting information. And that was my motivation to put this presentation together, to look to look for corroborating evidence, because anybody can say anything, but the corroborating evidence helps kind of cemented in that, hey, there's something here. These people, to make this up would be very, very difficult. So evidence is very important.
evidence is everything. That's how everyone who should be on their own individual journey of seeking truth, seeking knowledge, not from just their own experiences that they've had, but really to get away from the rabbling crowd and to look here and to do their own healing and to get to their own, their own understanding. I said disclosure is planned, it's on time, and they're using the threat of war to distract humanity and make everybody fight. And as High Commander Ardana said several times, High Admiral Ardana from the Galactic Federation of Worlds, that nothing stops what's coming. And that is full disclosure. Now, a couple of things to say on recent events, again, bringing evidence. When I did my last Galactic Spiritual Informers Connection event in England, in Eastbourne, May 10th and 11th, 2025, Elena Danan, JP, and myself, we said there were going to be spacecraft again, like they were in September, and thank you for presenting that. We said the day, the time, the place. So we weren't all outside for hours hoping, wishing, and calling, which you can do. We said at this time, between this time from 8 o'clock onwards. What happened was that the first two craft that came were from myself and my personal request to Elena Danan, to her contact, Thor Hanaredian, to his higher command, Admiral Superior, Jor-El, who is a physical human, who is working with High Admiral Ardana in the changeover of taking over the fleet craft known as the Excelsior, the battleship. Then, and we have the evidence too, the photographic, the paper trail from my request in and his request back, because it goes into, computer speak. It's a whole different binary code, a binary language, different technology. You don't just write an email and then Jor-El pops it back. It doesn't work like that. That's not real life. And this is, again, how we can prove evidence, physically prove evidence. So because the Earth military are working with the Galactic Federation of Worlds, as you so beautifully presented over the last few years, Dan Willis, just now for us. Because that existence is real and the good military on Earth work directly with them, we had to wait for some time for the Galactic Federation of Worlds, the two craft that I requested, to come over Eastbourne. So the first two craft we see in Eastbourne, the big gold ones in the sky, were mine. And they were unmanned. Why were they unmanned? Because they were still a potential threat that they might get shot down. Because it was requested via from me to Joel and back, the Galactic Federation of Worlds sent two ships. They then conferred with the British military. They were going for it, the British military, and then they tried to change their minds. Or someone or some group physically tried to stop it. So it took bloody ages. So finally, the craft from the Galactic Federation of Worlds came over. And then sometime later, we saw an Earth military craft come over, another TR-3B with flashing lights. And depending where you stood on the hill in front of the sea, it looked different. At first, because I was on the top of the grass with a lot of people, I was there with Joe Joyce, the great boxer, and other people. It looked at first like a plane with flashing lights, but those lucky enough to be underneath it, they took photographs of the triangulation of it physically. And as you know, there were over 2,050 people standing on that hill, witnessing many, many spacecraft, every shape you could imagine, cigar shapes, scout ships, massive ships, plasmas, orbs. It was beautiful. And then JP, he brought his friends in. And they came in all manner of array. And at the end of the night, around 11 o'clock, we had a final beautiful, just a cascade, a whole fleet coming in. And Dan, you've seen the videos. They come in like this. They're coming down like this. And the one that I loved the most for JP, he was on the microphone. We turned our backs to the sea. And JP's going, look, look, up there, 12 o'clock. And at 12 o'clock, we watched a craft. And JP was yelling, what? Watch, watch, it's going to turn right. It's going to turn right. And it bloody turned right. It turned right. I mean, that was such a coup for JP. So it was really beautiful. So again, it was JP that brought the majority of the fleets of different crafts, and me that brought from the Galactic Federation of Worlds, because we have different connections, of course. But how beautiful that this happened. And again, it's physical evidence. It is disclosure. And ladles and jelly beans disclosure is absolutely on time. Of that you can be assured.
Yeah. Seeing the craft physically is important. It helps concrete it in for people who've never seen it, before, because we've been under the psychological warfare, hiding this, denying this reality for a long time. In 1984, I had a craft fly about 100 feet over me. So I know they're real, but for people who've never seen them, it's important because it helps that, just aren't all these people making up stories and all like corroborating with each other to coincide, that they all make up all the stories, so it's important for people to have their own experience, to bring this reality that has been hidden for so long, with all these assets that we just went over, a little brief history of how the extreme measures that they've made in order to keep this quiet.
Absolutely. And as we know, it's not to be kept quiet. We stand hard on the ground of evidence. We honor everyone that brings their evidence, all the hard work everyone's doing. And this will never be about a single person. How could it possibly be? This is about humanity, the freedom of our planet, the safety of our solar system, and the removal of the utter trash and personnel who tried to dominate this planet. But once the Sikaar and Draco Empire, and once the Orion Greys and a couple of other Grey groups were removed, and a lot of people seem to have an issue with that, but you only have to look at what's happened since. And then the satanic occult at the top, they're all collapsing. They've got no plug-in to the ETs. They were all working together, and it's over. And we're watching this horrific system, this construct, this matrix collapse in front of us. And that is reality, isn't it, Dan?
Yeah. Well, the nice thing about truth is it continually substantiates itself with corroborating evidence, whereas lies, they eventually get exposed. And so, I have great optimism for truth being revealed and that we can have our planet liberated and from these deceptions and lies that have been perpetrated on our planet.
Yeah, and it's going to take all of us together, not a singular voice, not one singular hero, not somebody who's going to stand like it was me. Look what I did. I opened fire. I have saved the galaxy. No, that's
No, we're all part of the disclosure, each one of us.
indeed we are. Indeed we are. Well, I am so grateful to you. And thank you for standing for the Galactic Federation of Worlds, for truth, for Elena Danan, for our other friends in disclosure. You are a great man, a great whistleblower, and it's an honor to know you, Dan Willis.
My loyalty is always to truth.
Thank you, Dan. And to you guys out there, there's also a great saying that don't bother trying to prove because truth defends itself. And so I leave that with you all. My name is Danny Henderson. I love humanity. Sending love from my heart to yours. I'll see you soon. Thank you, Dan Willis.